I'm Lyndon George, the Executive Director of Hamilton's Anti-Racism Resource Center. Thank you for joining us tonight for our town hall to combat regarding racism, hate, poverty, and disability issues in our community. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the candidates who are joining us here today. But before I do, I also want to acknowledge that the PC candidates sent their regrets. With that, I'd like to also start off with a few words regarding our land acknowledgement. Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase of 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. Today, Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our role as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. This evening, we had some slight technical difficulties before we started. So we're a little late getting started, but that isn't going to stop us from having some really important discussions. And I'm so very glad to be joined by these two incredible candidates. And thank you for taking the time for being with us here today. From the Ontario NDP, we have Monique Taylor. And from the Ontario Liberal Party, we have Chantal Lachance. With that, I'd like to go over the quick format of today's town hall. We're going to have a few minutes for you each to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your platform and how it relates to hate, racism, disability in our community. And then we're going to open up 5 questions that we're going to ask you to answer, and you'll each have an opportunity to respond. Then we'll have closing remarks, and then that will conclude our town hall for today. So with that, I'd like to start by acknowledging Chantal, and I'd like you to introduce yourself. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chantal Lachance. I'm the Ontario Liberal candidate for Hamilton Mountain, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. So what I thought I would do is read you page 5 of our platform, because as you'll see after I read it, is that inclusion truly is the foundation of our platform. Everything that we have done in the last 4 years and everything that is contained inside this platform really does relate to inclusion, which is truly the key to success when it comes to combating inequities in society, racialism, and so this is why I thought I would read this to you. So let me get started. So this is page 5. We have become a new Ontario Liberal Party by listening to you, one that shares your experiences and reflects your priorities, one that understands elections are just one part of a dialogue, not the end. That dialogue led to the largest platform consultation in our party's history, 25 open forums, 500 consultation meetings, and over 28,000 participants. In total, Ontarians submitted over 38,000 ideas and cast over 230,000 votes to create this platform. Even after all that feedback, our platform would be incomplete without actively seeking out those who have been historically left out of Ontario's corridors of power. We held town hall meetings to hear directly from underrepresented and disadvantaged communities and reviewed and evaluated every idea put forward with them in mind. We made inclusion our foundation, and it has helped improve our vision for Ontario. Inclusion is also at the heart of our new Ontario Liberal team of candidates. More than half are women, a historic first in our party's history. People from diverse communities also make up a significant portion of our team. Our candidates are community builders like teachers, doctors, nurses, lawyers, small business owners, entrepreneurs, farmers, councillors, mayors, and much more. Our team reflects Ontario. So we hope this plan strikes a chord with you, but we know that it's only a starting point. There's still so much work to do, and we are committing to doing it together. And so that was page 5. And what I'd like to also add for me personally as a teacher is that inclusivity and equity are really the cornerstones of our classrooms in Ontario. So in everything that we do, we try to, make people feel included, make sure that the learning is accessible and that everyone has a chance to succeed. And so thank you for having me tonight. And I'll pass it over to Ms. Taylor.
And with that, over to you, Monique.
Thank you so much, Lyndon. Good evening, everyone. I am Monique Taylor, the NDP candidate for Hamilton Mountain, and I am the incumbent for this riding. I would like to start by thanking the Hamilton Centre for Civic Inclusion, the Disability Justice Network of Ontario, the Hamilton Racism Resource Centre, and the Hamilton Community Legal Clinic for bringing us together in this forum tonight to discuss these very important issues of systemic racism, hate, poverty, and disability, all of which have greatly and negatively impacted so many in our community for far too long. I also want to thank all of you who are watching at home and taking in this participation. Ontario is a beautiful and a rich province that has been the destination for countless people, both nationally and internationally. Well, I once thought this was a place that was safe, welcoming, and a diverse fabric woven for all, I naively did not see the challenges and the inequities our province's institutions have created for so many. I was blind to the hate and the hurt that numerous people have experienced and continue to experience. Quite frankly, I was big on love, but I was short on reality and education. Recognizing my white privilege and the benefits that come along with it took education. It took my work as a New Democrat and learning to view issues through an intersectional lens to be able to see and understand the inequities and injustices people in our community face. This is a continuous learning process, and I am grateful for that opportunity. Persons living with disabilities and their experiences are critical to tonight's discussions as well. For far too long, people with disabilities have been forced into a life of poverty. They have been forced to reckon with unfair boundaries to their participation. I have had the honor to serve as a critic for children, social services, disability, and most recently, mental health and addictions. Those roles have allowed me to stand alongside so many, and they have allowed me to stand up against challenges of inadequate income, lack of access to services, and a broken system that usually causes more issues than it fixes. We have seen previous Liberal and Conservative governments time after time neglect and ignore the needs of our most vulnerable citizens and children. Education and good, comprehensive, evidence-based policies are the key. I'm proud to be a New Democrat and to have a leader in Andrea Horvath who gets it. She gets it because she listens. I'm proud to be a part of a team who are putting forward real plans and achievable solutions. We are committed to equity, accessibility, inclusion, and hope. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussions to be able to share those policies throughout the questions and throughout the discussion that we'll be sharing tonight, and we'll be able to dig deeper into our platform and policies. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you both for those opening remarks.
Welcome.
And so we're going to start off with our first question of the evening. And because Chantal, you had the first round for introductions, I'm going to pose that question now to Monique. Monique, today in Kamloops, BC, hundreds gathered for a memorial marking the 1 year since the discovery of unmarked graves of children whose lives were lost while being forced to attend the Kamloops residential schools. The National Center for Truth and Reconciliation has said about 4,100 children died at residential schools in Canada, but that the actual total number is much higher. What will you and your party do to address the structural legacy of Canada's residential school systems, and how will you advance reconciliation in Ontario?
Thank you for that really important question, Lyndon. It's absolutely horrifying to see what's Hamilton's legacy or Canada's legacy throughout our Indigenous communities, and to see what they have faced and the tragedies that have come along with it. Years they have felt the traumatic effects. It's not something that just happened years ago, though they're still feeling the effects of those today. So we're committed to ensuring that we have supports in place for people in Indigenous communities, mental health supports, that we're committed to all of the recommendations of the reconciliation report. And, you know, we've definitely been leading in so many ways by having an Indigenous member with Selma Makwa from Kawitanong, who has ensured that Indigenous voices have been loud at Queen's Park and they're heard at Queen's Park, and that Indigenous needs are prevalent and that they're at the top of mind. And we're committed to ensuring that all those records are fulfilled, and that we're supporting Indigenous communities on First Nations, on nations across Ontario, but also in our urban communities, because we know that we're seeing that they're feeling the effects still, and making sure that we're providing the funding for the friendship centers, for Indigenous health community centers, so that their needs are looked after, and that they're respected, because they've definitely been disrespected for much too long. So we need to ensure that we have a full review of what happened, and that we ensure that it never happens again, and that we have systems that make sense. If you look at our children's aid systems of today, there's more children, Indigenous children in children's aids than what we've seen in residential schools at points. And so there's lots to be done to ensure that we have an equitable system that will respect Indigenous communities and their special needs, right? Their unique needs is the word that I think I would like to use. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Chantal, I'd like to pose the same question to you this evening. What will you and your party do to address the structural legacy of Canada's residential school systems, and how will you advance reconciliation in Ontario?
Okay, well, the first thing I think we need is leadership. So the first thing we should do, the first thing we want to do is bring back a minister that's focused on Indigenous reconciliation. So we need somebody leading so that it becomes and stays a priority. Now, what that minister can help do is help make sure that the 22,000 new homes for off-reserve Indigenous families are built. We want to make sure that we're investing $25 million in Indigenous small businesses. So anyone that has a dream of building a business or starting a business in Ontario, they should have access to funding to be able to do that. We also want to make sure that everyone in Ontario, including the Indigenous community, have access to safe, clean water. And we really want to end the need for boiling water advisories. We also want to mandate learning. Now, this is really important in order for people to be sensitive to our history and to never forget. So make sure that we mandate learning about the painful history of Canada's residential schools and the significant contributions of the Indigenous people. And we also want to support the teachings of First Nations languages and culture. And we want to invest in their libraries. And so reading is one of the best ways for children to continue to internalize their history, their culture, and to be able to understand so that, where they came from and who they are as people. And then we want to make a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and make that a statutory holiday so that people can never forget, the importance of their integration in our society and who they are. So those are just some of the things. And, I'm happy when I went through the platform and I saw that our priorities and how, especially the leadership, I think, again, that's one of the things that will make sure that the things that we have on this list will be done.
Thank you. And so we'll start with you on our second round of questions.
Okay.
Recently, Hamilton was dubbed the hate crime capital of Canada. And we have seen reports of hate crimes rising by 38% in 2021 here in Hamilton. This does not include hate crimes that were not reported to the police. As an anti-racism resource center, we often get those calls, the ones where individuals reach out to us directly looking for support when they encounter racism in our community. What are you and your party planning to do about this problem?
Yes. And so hate crimes, obviously, yes, they did rise. I mean, it was evident in the media. And I mean, the stats are showing that they have risen throughout the pandemic and it's still happening. So it's obviously an indication that we need to continue to work hard to make sure that we get back to progress. And one thing that I would like to address as an MPP is that I think we need to do something about protecting the minds of people when it comes to social media and the media that they're internalizing. So apparently, I read in the newspaper recently that our youth are coming across messages of hate on social media on a regular basis. And so, if we know anything about the process of conditioning, we know that when we are, even if we come across a message, whether we want to internalize it or not, it is infiltrating our subconscious mind. So, the more we're exposed to hate and messages of hate, more it becomes part of our thought process, and then it translates into our words, and then it goes into our actions. So I mean, obviously that doesn't happen to everybody, but it is a part of the problem. Now, in terms of the Ontario Liberal Party, so sorry, before I get into the Ontario Liberal, personally for myself, I would love to be able to do something. I don't know what's possible, but I would like to at least open up the discussion in terms of the influence of social media and the media. So in terms of the Ontario Liberal Party, what we want to do is improve the way we investigate hate crimes with an enhanced Crown Attorney unit dedicated to advising police and prosecuting hate crimes. We will also make it a criminal offense to participate in acts of intimidation within 50 meters of any faith institution. And we'll add new supports and funding to help Ontarians learn about the painful truth of the Holocaust and to prevent the harmful spread of its denial. And we will also pass legislation to address Islamophobia and create new tools and strategies to combat all forms of racism. Now, once again, we want to appoint a standalone minister, and once again, to make sure that somebody is leading this file in order to make sure that these things are being done. Now, the other thing that we'd like to do is just continue to make sure that our police are properly funded and that they properly represent the society that they are protecting. So, yes.
All right, well, thank you. And Monique, I would like to pose that same question to you. What are you and your party planning to do about the rise of hate crimes in Hamilton, a 38% increase? How would the Ontario NDP confront that issue here in Hamilton?
For sure. Thank you for that question, Lyndon. No one should have to feel fear in their own homes and walking down their own streets. And we've definitely seen a huge rise of hatred, of divisiveness, of racism in all of our communities. And so we would also be implementing a minister responsible for anti-racism. We had implemented the anti-racism directorate years back that we see in the Conservative government cut. Ensure that there's mandatory oppression and anti-bias training for all public employees and legislatures, because we see racism in every form, in every sector. So it has to be make sure that we're top down and looking at all sectors to ensure that there's proper anti-racism training. Supporting our community groups. You know this all too well, by making sure that you have the proper funds to be able to help our communities, to be able to support our communities when they're calling your offices and they're reporting these hate crimes. For you to be able to have the resources to be able to deal with those efficiently is really important. So that's one of our commitments. Making sure that we have an anti-racism advisory and advocacy council so that we can constantly be talking about it, upgrading our communications, our education to how we're moving forward. Anti-racism is something that we've definitely seen a huge rise in, and so we'll be pushing back against that. We had brought forward a bill previously. Unfortunately, the Conservatives cut that bill and it didn't go anywhere. Making sure we have an anti-Asian racism day, take urgent action dismantle white supremacy groups in Ontario. The white supremacy groups, they're creating like not-for-profits. They're creating these official organizations. We have to stop that. We have to not allow that language to continue to breed, to continue to fester into our communities. I think that's a really important issue, because I have to agree with Chantel. Social media has become a cesspool, quite frankly, of hatred, of people being able to speak on any topic that they want and feel free, that their freedom is much more important than somebody else's freedom, and that impacts somebody else's ability to feel okay about themselves, and that's not okay. We have to be tackling that system, and making sure that people can have a safe space, and that we can exclude hatred from infiltrating our kids' minds. White supremacists, I mean, we really have to work and fight hard back against that. Holocaust memorials. There's so much work to do, Lyndon, in our communities, and it's really going to truly take all of us working together, having forums like this, having these discussions to be able to tackle it, to ensure that our kids are safe in schools, and that we have proper education that we're just not seeing these days. So that's a few of them. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Monique, so we're going to continue on with that and pose the next question to you. Disabled people have been left behind in this pandemic, especially with regard to government supports, such as access to accessible, affordable housing, and social assistance rates have not gone up. In what way is your party planning to support and uplift disabled people?
For sure. Super important question. Really happy to have the opportunity to speak on this. It's an issue that we see each and every day. People come to my office on a regular basis. They're not able to make ends meet. They're concerned about where they're going to be moving if they get rent evicted, which we're seeing happened a lot, or people are selling their homes at a really high realtor market, and displacing people who have lived in those places for years. We've watched rent control be removed. These are things that are really important, and we need to be protecting people, ensuring that they have safe homes, that they can afford safe and affordable homes. Is a key issue. We've seen ODSP be underfunded for years and years and years, with meager increases from Liberals, and literally chopped in half by the Conservatives when they came into power. We're really not much better off than what we've seen under Mike Harris years, where people were gutted literally from the social services system. So in the first thing we'll do overnight is 20% increase within the first year. We will double those rates and work with people within the system to ensure that we're building a system that makes sense, that is built on a formula so people will never be able to be in poverty again, and work on other things within the system that is so broken. The employment services that so many people, regardless of whether you're disabled or not, some people can still work, and we need to make sure that their earnings are not completely all clawed back for them, that they're able to have a meaningful life, and they're able to work when they can, that who they live with doesn't count for how much money that they get. These are the things that will change, will bring back the basic income pilot, and ensure that that's to be looked at again. There's lots of things that we can do for people who are living with disabilities to bring them out of poverty, and to ensure that we have things in place so that they never go back there again.
Thank you. All right. And same question to you.
Okay.
If you'd like me to repeat it, I can, but if
No,
you'd
it's
like
okay.
to keep it, go right ahead. All right.
So as a teacher, I've always strived to offer an equitable and accessible classroom. So our plan for people living on disabilities or with disabilities is comprehensive and includes increased monthly amounts, savings, and opportunities to enhance the quality of their lives. So when we talk about the increased monthly amounts, we'd like to increase the amount one receives on ODSP by 20% over 2 years. And we'd also like to bring back the Universal Basic Income pilot project. So that was something that we were going to do in 2018, but then obviously when the Conservatives, as Ms. Taylor said, when the Conservatives came into power, they put a stop to that right away, unfortunately. So in terms of the savings, everyone in Ontario will save the HST on prepared meals. So that's more money in their pocket. So prepared meals under $20, you would save the HST. And everyone in Ontario would save on transit fares with Buck a Ride. So that also includes Transwheels. So until 2024, you can ride the HSR or the GO for $1 each way. In terms of opportunities, so again, this is like a comprehensive approach. You have increased monthly amounts increasing, and then you've got savings, but then it's the opportunities. So we'd like to increase a person's possible earnings on assistance to $6,000 a year. So we know that right now it's like $2,500. So you still qualify for ODSP, and you can still make $2,500, but we'd like to increase that to $6,000. And because we know that increased socialization and participation in life are factors that support overall well-being, we'd like to give a person who qualifies for the passport program $6,000, and we'd like to further fund the community activities that they can participate in. So any kind of the activities that they would like to participate in that have to do with the passport program. So they would have an extra $6,000. And we'd like to help a person on social assistance to go to school. So if he or she wants to go back to school, we're going to double the OSAP loans, and we will not charge interest. And we'd like to build 2,500 supportive homes. And once again, we'd like to add a minister for disabilities. So somebody that can strengthen the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act and add disability mandates in Ontario. So our plan for people on social assistance, it's very comprehensive. So it's not just about money. We want to give people a sense of belonging. Okay, so it's that combination of increased monthly earnings, savings, and opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you. And so our question here is going to be a little bit more specific when it comes to hate and around legislation. And you'll hear me pivoting back to the role that we have here at Heart, because I think as an organization that is out there in the community addressing these issues day in, day out, and hearing from residents the direct impact of white supremacy in our community, it is a challenge for us to be able to meet that need without the support of elected officials at all levels of government. And that means legislation and policy. And so our question here is about legislation specifically. Addressing racism and hate is a priority for people who have experienced hateful attacks based on their race, faith, and other parts of their identities. In the wake of recent events in Buffalo, where a white supremacist killed 10 Black members of the community, and in London, Ontario, where an Islamophobic terrorist attack took the lives of 3 generations of a family in London, we see the impact of communities calling for action. So in the wake of the London attack, the National Council of Canadian Muslims worked tirelessly to bring forward legislation to address Islamophobia in Ontario. The bill didn't pass before the election campaign began. And so my question is, do you support the legislation? And what would you and your party do to address Islamophobia and hate in Ontario? And with that, I believe this question would go to Chantel.
So I definitely support passing the legislation. And in terms of tools and strategies, I think that integration and inclusion in everything that we do in society is the key to dismantling systemic racism and hate. when we have people working together, living together, towards a common goal, whether it be a project in school or working together in a specific, in an office, to strive for integration in school, integrate. And I think that when I really think about it, it's really continuing with the school system, right? It really is about starting at school when the children are young, having mandating education so that children are growing up with this understanding of and this appreciation for all cultures. So I think that's for me. It's education is the key to success and integration wherever. Like we said today, making sure that there's proper representation in our party, in the police force, in every area of life, whether it be a fire in. At the fire station or the hospital, that everyone be represented, because that is Ontario.
Thank you. And Monique, to you, same question. The bill didn't pass before the election, and many communities in Ontario, particularly from the Muslim community, had advocated for this bill. Do you support the legislation, and what will your party do to address Islamophobia and hate in Ontario?
Absolutely, Lyndon. That was a New Democrat bill, Bill 86, that we built with the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Together, we built that bill. Four of our members, actually, joint members, 3 members from London and 1 from York Centre, put that bill together because of, and it's actually called our London Families Act. And so it is to dismantle white supremacy groups by preventing them from registering as societies, and prevents acts of intimidations, restore the Provincial Anti-Racism Directorate, and give Ontario schools new tools to help young people understand Islamophobia. It was such an important bill at such a critical time, and with so much emotion put behind it with what we've seen. And people worked so hard to bring that forward. And the Conservatives literally, they took that bill and they discharged it. I have been in the legislature for almost 11 years. I've never heard of a bill being discharged. It was a private member's bill. They happen on a regular basis. They literally took our private members' bill and discharged it off to committee for whatever it was supposed to. They said that they were going to build it better and bring it back again. It never seen the light of day again in the legislature. It died in committee because the Conservatives purposely pushed it out there. And then the Conservatives also convinced the Muslim community that they were going to bring it back stronger and better, and that it was for the betterment of the community, when we all know that's clearly not the case. It's really unfortunate that the Conservatives are not here with us tonight to be able to speak to their record on this, because it was really something to see that bill with what happened to it. Totally shameful. We could already be moving forward on that, and instead that bill now has to be retabled again, go through the process, wait for a member to be able to have it. If when we take government, we'll make sure that we just push it forward through really quickly, and ensure that we're truly tackling hate as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, and we are now coming to the final question of our evening. I want to thank you both for responding to our questions, but also for participating in this town hall. It's so key for voters to have an insight into the individual who's put their name on the ballot, and these questions mean a lot to community members who are seeking answers. And so the final question is: affordability is top of mind for many voters with the rising cost of rent and constant threat of rent evictions. And it sounds to me like you're both familiar with that term, in which individuals are being displaced because someone has bought a building and now is saying they want to renovate it. So now individuals have to move out and seek rents at often higher and higher rates, and are unable to return to the place of where they currently live. And so what will your party do to address the rising cost of rents for Black, Indigenous, racialized, and low-income residents in Hamilton? And I believe this one goes to start off with Monique.
Thank you for that question, Lyndon. Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing so many people being thrown out of their homes that they've lived in for years. Landlords that are just pulling off awful stunts that aren't even legal. We use the Hamilton Community Clinic quite often to be able to tackle these challenges. And then where are they going, right? So we are committed to building homes and specifically focusing on making sure that we have homes that are for community. Did we lose Lyndon? I think we did.
We did. No, I think.
Still here.
Yeah, he's in and out. He's
Yeah.
in and out.
We need to, and we have homes that are committed to Black and racialized communities. And supports, because we know that they need to be there. I mean, we will increase the minimum wage to $20 by 2026. Look at PSWs, just for instance, right? We know that majority of people who are PSWs are women of color and of and culture, and they have been treated the worst throughout this pandemic. Their jobs are disrespected. They're working part-time jobs on full-time hours, and sometimes three of them, to be able to cobble together enough to be able to support their families. That's wrong. And so we're committed to really tackling this issue and ensuring that people are respected, and that they have the opportunities to be able to have a safe home, to live in a home that's affordable and safe, and is enough room for them and their children. There's honestly, how many apartments I've come across where families are really, bunked up with beds everywhere, just trying to have enough space for their family members. So it's a major issue for us. Out of the 100,000 homes, I know there will be a huge support ensuring that Indigenous people, that Black and Indigenous families, racialized families, have the supports that they need.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Chantal.
Okay, thank you for the question. And so I know I hear this at the doors a lot, and renters have had a really tough time ever since the Conservatives have gotten rid of the rent controls. And so, and another thing that they did is that they actually cut the landlord and tenant board. So that the landlord and tenant board would offer, would come in as a mediator to help a tenant or a landlord that had any kind of issues. And prior to 2018, they would come in if they would write in or call, whether it be the landlord or the tenant, after about 3 weeks. There would be about a 3-week delay. But at this time, because of the cuts, it's taking up to 2 years. I spoke to a man the other day who is a landlord, and who said that he has no help. It's been 6 months. The tenant hasn't paid his rent. And it's been really difficult. But that can also be as disastrous for a tenant who is being mistreated by a landlord, or who is not, for example, if the landlord decides to cut the hydro. So renters need to be protected as well, and it shouldn't take 2 years for anyone to get help. So these are one of the things that we're going to reinvest in. And we're also going to bring back rent control in order to help all people, including people that are racialized and from who are in a difficult situation. Sorry. We're going to allow them to be able to have more predictable increases in rent, because to be evicted and then to not know where to go next, it's unacceptable in any society. And when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in order to self-actualize, you need your foundation. You need food, you need water, and you need shelter. And so if we can't do that for our Ontarians, what kind of government are we? We need to protect all people, and we need to make sure that people can thrive in Ontario. And so at the core, it is about shelter, food, and water. Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us for tonight's debate, and for all the viewers who've tuned in tonight. And we'll take the opportunity to look at this when we post it online. These are important discussions. It's a part of the democratic process. And I want to encourage everyone to go out and vote on June 2nd. You can vote now. The advanced polls are now open if you're watching this. And you can also vote at the returning office on Hamilton Mountain. And for those that are unaware, the returning office is at 1550 Upper James Street, Unit 201. And the phone number for the returning office is 1-833-605-1666. So you can call them for more information, and you should receive your voter's card in the mail telling you where your polling station is on election day. And so thank you to you both. And we wish you the best of luck as you go out there, continue to knock on doors and engage the community. Thank you for joining us here today. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Is it done? Oh gosh. Monique, how are you feeling?